What's up, everybody? It's Mark Smelly Bell, and I wanted to first of all tell you guys that sugar fasting is the greatest diet of all time. It just is. I just think it has a lot of utility. I think it's something that could be pulled out of someone's toolbox, pulled off of someone's tool belt, and utilized to knock back some calories. Sugar fasting is something that came along and was really hammered by Cole Robinson. And then I swooped in and helped make it more popular with Cole and now a lot of other people. Now there's like a whole kind of army of people that are doing sugar fasting. And what I'd like to communicate with people is like, let's not be like crazy and dogmatic the way that some other diet cultures have been. So if this is going to turn into like a culture of some kind, if this is going to turn into like a team or a squad, let's be cool. Like, let's be different. Let's take the opportunity to, rather than shoot other people down, let's figure out ways of lifting people up. And when you see, comments of someone saying, "Hey, sugar fasting is dumb. I don't think it works. Da 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 da. I tried it." Rather than like shooting anybody down or getting too tied up in the comment section, if you are going to say anything, then I would just say, hey, you know what? Sorry, it didn't work great for you, but I lost 15 pounds, and whatever your experience is, I think that's the best way because the results are coming in, and the longer that people do this diet for, the greater and greater the results are going to be. I think, I've done a lot of different dietary interventions over the years, and a lot of them were really helpful. Paleo was awesome. Carnivore was awesome. Keto was awesome. The likelihood that I'll entertain doing some of those diets again is very high. I probably will go back to doing some of those things. I actually just think in the wintertime that I probably won't want to eat as much fruit. I probably won't want to be as cold and making smoothies and stuff. I'd probably rather grab a hold of some soup or cook up some meat, right? So I'm not abandoning those other things. I think that they have utility. They can work well. The carnivore diet, is a diet where you pull out all the other foods and you primarily just run off of meat. That was a diet that I experimented with, but it wasn't a diet that I really did for a long time because I also shifted around to adding in fruit, adding in vegetables, and also dropping a lot of the fat calories because I didn't see the point of like being high protein and high fat, which is not a ketogenic diet. A ketogenic diet is high fat, and it's like very modest in terms of the amount of protein, but it's also very low carb. So anyway, I messed around with those different diets and stumbled upon this from Cole Robinson and been off to the races with this since. And today I want to kind of dive into talking about like weight fluctuation as well as digestive issues that some people might run into. They're all very common. I had somebody in the comment section today of the video that I posted where I've just had this giant smoothie that I poured over some fruit, and they were asking if I've ever had a heartburn on this diet. I personally have not experienced that, but I could see maybe like the acidity of some of the fruit could maybe get to people. I do suggest that people look into FODMAP. There's FODMAP for fruit and there's FODMAP for vegetables. And these are, I believe they're like lower gases of food. They're things that are supposed to be easier to digest. I forget what FODMAP stands for, but maybe as Ryan looks it up, maybe he can kind of tell us what the heck it means.
So FODMAP fruits, the high ones are apples, apricots, blackberries, cherries, figs, grapes, guava, honeydew, mango, nectarines, pears, peaches, plums, pomegranates, and watermelon. Low FODMAP fruits, bananas, blueberries, cantaloupe, clementines, grapes, kiwi, lemons, limes, oranges, pineapples, raspberries, and strawberries.
And for those of you watching on YouTube, we pulled it up on the screen. Well, I guess everyone's watching on YouTube because we don't turn this into a podcast. So there you go. So you can screen capture that. I think you're after the low FODMAP foods. Does it say what that acronym stands for, Ryan?
It means
fermented something. Yeah.
Fermentable, oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols.
Yeah, what he said. So yeah, you're looking for the low FODMAP foods, I believe. And we pulled that up on a recent podcast that I did with Ensema. Ensema and I went over the sugar diet thoroughly on the Power Project YouTube channel. You guys can check that out as well. That went up live, so that was up yesterday, and it's still sitting there. Unfortunately, the feed died. So for those of you watching, you're like, "What the hell happened at the end?" That's what the hell happened at the end. It just cut out, bombed out on us. Anyway, for those of you that are here, you can ask questions, but I'm just going to kind of ramble for a little bit longer and just talk about a couple things about digestion. So one of the reasons why I make that that smoothie that I pour over fruit is for digestive reasons. I also think it's important to point out, like, you might want to start out with single ingredient or 2 ingredient or 3 ingredient fruits. Like, so don't go combining like a lot of fruit together. Maybe start 1 at a time or 2 at a time, something like that, and see where that puts you. Also, I would say I haven't really heard anybody have digestive issues with, like, the closer that you get to sugar, the less likely I think you are to have digestive issues. I have not heard anybody say they have digestive issues with honey. I haven't heard anybody say they have digestive issues with maple syrup, although I'm sure there's conditions and there's things that people have where they can't digest those. There's always all kinds of possibilities. And there's also people, I think, that actually struggle with fructose. So that's an interesting piece of the puzzle here. It's like there's some people might kind of struggle with fructose. And then also, is it the fructose or is it the fruit? Because that's probably hard to decipher. You might say, "Oh, I have a hard time with fructose," but it might be because you're getting it from like apples. And an apple is going to have pectin, and those fibers are great for us. It's the skin of the fiber, has a lot of use as well. Something that Joel Green talks about quite a bit. So there's these foods that, like, they're like a lot of yin and yang to them, and try to figure out how to appropriately utilize those things is really important. Somebody might not digest an apple very well, but they might be okay with apple juice. Sometimes people can digest stuff better if it doesn't have any pulp in it. Sometimes people can digest stuff better when it does have pulp in it. So it's highly individual, but the reason why I put the fruit and the smoothie together was to have something to chew, because I think mastication, is really important. The chewing of food. I also would advocate for chewing your food well, taking your time and actually chewing your food, maybe sitting down at a table, like, rather than just like standing in your kitchen and just scarfing stuff down mindlessly. I would imagine that's a little harder to digest when you do that. So sit down, try to relax. Something from our friend Superbrain. He advised some of the bikini and figure and physique people that he's worked with in the past to actually, when they come home from work, just try to take a minute, try to take a couple minutes to yourself, calm yourself down. Don't just immediately raid the pantry, fridge, or freezer. It's like you're switching gears, right? Like when you go from work to the gym, it's like you got to kind of turn into a different person a little bit. And it's the same thing, when you go from your work environment to home, you got to kind of change a little bit. You got to change your mindset and change who you are. You might be really frustrated with work, but you don't want to bring that into the household type thing, right? And then same thing coming home from the gym to the household. It's like you got to kind of change your mind a little bit from that, because you might have been engaging in some good locker room talk at the gym with your buddies, really just effing around a lot. But then, you don't want to be that way around your wife and kids, right? So you always have to make these shifts throughout the day. And I think in order to digest our food better, we need to make a little bit of a shift. I don't go as far to do what Superbrain recommends. He recommends laying down on the ground and putting your feet up on your couch and just taking like 6 to 8 breaths and just trying to really calm yourself down. He actually found that people had better like resting glucose once they took a couple minutes to do that, or however long it takes to do that. And then you might digest your food a little bit better, because now you're calmer, right? That's the main thing, is to be calmer. I think he said to do it for like 2 or 3 minutes. So It wasn't just a couple breaths. But anyway, instead of doing that, I just take a shower when I get home. I kind of need a shower anyway when I get home because I like lifted and podcasted and stuff all day. And I feel better from taking a shower. So whether it's 4 p.m. that I get home or 7 p.m. that I get home, I almost always hit the shower, and that's my time to try to like unwind and relax. And I literally visualize like washing off the day, washing off even the exercise that I did. Like I'm thinking to myself, like, this is my recovery right here. Boom. Like I'm going to wash away the soreness. I'm going to wash away the stressors of today. And when I get out of the shower, I'm going to feel like a new person. And I fucking do. I feel amazing when I get out of the shower. It's like my favorite thing to do is to take a shower. It like is a nice reset button for me. So I do that, and then I eat my food. And I'm not saying like that I know for sure that helps with digestion, but it does help to kind of just calm everything down a little bit, which feels really good. Some people have been experiencing diarrhea. Some people have just been experiencing like bloating. So I think the first thing you want to start with is like, let's make sure we're chewing our food. Number 2 is let's make sure that we're not mixing too many different kinds of fruit. That might be something that disrupts the stomach. Check out FODMAPs and check out like the low FODMAP foods. Again, the vertical diet is a great resource for a lot of these things. Stan Efferding worked his little heart out on that book, and I think he's got great information in there. And now that a lot of people are shifting over into eating more carbs, that'd be a great book to get because he talks a lot about like rice and potatoes. And the vertical diet, one of the reasons it's called the vertical diet is to stack your food vertically so you can eat comfortably multiple times a day. And you can almost like stack your stomach with food. He's not saying like engorge yourself with food all day, but he is giving you foods that you can digest simply each and every time you eat. And Stan is a promoter of like, Stan wants people to eat more. He wants people to eat more often. He wants people to kind of rev their metabolism up. And he's the one years ago was saying, hey, chuck a little carbs in there to get the thyroid cranking, And a lot of the people that follow Ray Peat know that Ray Peat talks a lot about trying to utilize food to create like a thermic effect. Utilize food to get you warm. People call people that follow Ray Peat Petarians, and it's just like kind of a tipping of the hat to some of the work from Ray Peat. I don't know how much weight you want to put into like eating foods that make you hot, because for me on this diet, I'm pretty cold. That's why I'm wearing a hoodie right now, because I had a big ass smoothie this morning. So those cold smoothies, obviously, they're going to make you a little bit cold. Your fruit from the fridge, your fruit from the freezer, it's going to make you cold. And if that's the case, I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think that, maybe you let your fruit, sit out a little bit so it gets a little warmer, things like that. I try to go outside and eat my fruit in the sun as much as I can, but it's still been a little bit cold. So I'm doing the best I can with that. And I'm grounded, I'm standing in the, I'm standing I'm standing in my backyard on the grass, facing the sun when I'm eating my fruit in the morning. Or there's a picture here of me eating some food in the sunroom. I have a sunroom, fortunately, and that works out pretty good too. Getting a lot of the rays of the sun and all that stuff in there. And there I am in my backyard sipping on a smoothie. So sunlight, we can't leave that out of the picture. Sunlight helps tremendously with digestion. There's so many just behind some layers of skin on our stomach. There's a lot of our immune system is there. A lot of our digestive system is there. And when you get out and you get sunlight, it's very important to your digestion. So if you got an opportunity, you can wear a cotton shirt. Cotton shirt is going to help you to absorb some of that sunlight. Or if you don't mind just pulling your shirt off on some walks and some times where you're outside, then, get that sunlight. And those are all things that over time, they're going to help with digestion. You're not going to just like be outside for 10 minutes and then be like, oh my God, my digestion is better. It doesn't work quite like that, but over time, it'll be something that you'll notice. The sunlight in general just makes everything easier. It seems like it just allows your body to utilize energy more efficiently, and it allows your body to digest foods a little bit easier. So the sun really just has like tons and tons of mega powers. Be careful though with the sun that you're not just, out of nowhere going out and getting a UV of 9 or 8 or 7 when you're just not used to it and you don't have the right skin tone for it. So one of the best things you can do is to try to spend some time outside in the morning or in the evening, and you can just simply check. You can talk to your phone and you can ask it, when's the UV the highest and when it's the lowest and so forth. And you can, if the UV is like below 5, for most people, you're probably very safe. When it starts to get a little higher is when you need to be cautious on how long you're out for. And you might want to get some shade and all those different things. But this isn't a whole entire report about the sun and sunlight. But the sun is going to help you to also regulate your blood sugar. So going out on a walk, a 10-minute walk, we know a 10-minute walk is profound when it comes to assisting your blood sugar. The postprandial, the after you ate some food walk is critical. Then we also know that the sun in general is very useful and very helpful for blood glucose regulation. And that's really what we're after with this diet. And that's what makes this diet one of the greatest diets of all time, if not the greatest diet of all time, because it's trying to attack the metabolism. We just have not really seen that many people talk in this way. There are a few people. There's Jay Feldman and a few other people. Ray Peat was one of them as well, who talked about this like bioenergetic model. And that just simply means that you're targeting the metabolism to like run a little bit faster than normal. You're trying to optimize. And how many people are talking about, when they talk about diet or someone talks about a cut, who in the hell ever talks about optimizing their metabolism? I haven't really heard anybody really say anything remotely close to that. I know the coaches and stuff are going to be like, well, we talked about reverse dieting. But yeah, that's like, a little tiny phase that people do. And it's like, they're just looking at the calories and stuff too. It's like, I know I'm kind of closed-minded to the calorie thing. I know that it works. I know I can be annoying about it, but I just, I don't love it. I don't love it because I see a lot of people counting their calories and they still really struggle a lot. And then they don't count their calories when they cheat on their diet. And I'm like, that's what needs to be counted the most. Like, why are we counting chicken and broccoli and rice? Why the fuck are we tracking that? I guess you can be proud of tracking that, right? But you're not proud of tracking the 5 Butterfingers that you ate. Bodybuilding and weight training are what you would classify as glycolytic. It's a carbohydrate-driven exercise routine. It demands carbohydrates when you lift. And interestingly enough, your blood glucose, if you were to wear a CGM, your blood glucose actually goes up quite a bit while you're working out. And that's probably the reason why your insulin follows. I believe your insulin kind of always follows your glucose. Your glucose goes up, your insulin goes up, and that's why they talk about peri-nutrition, where you are consuming calories before, during, and after workouts sometimes to basically take advantage of this elevated glucose, this elevated blood sugar and elevated insulin. And now you have this like eating window. And maybe that's something that we'll discuss when I talk with Jay Feldman and some other guests that have coming up. That would be a good one for Joe English too. I need to get him back on here again because he's just, he knows a lot about bodybuilding and he's big and he's jacked. And the people that know a lot about bodybuilding, they're always a little ahead because the bodybuilders, as Cole Robinson would say, they've run the experiments. Cole is someone that's talking a lot about experiments and how he's done so many different experiments over the years where he's eaten, carbohydrates in the morning and then shut them down at night. And he found more success eating more food earlier in the day and shutting the food down in the latter half of the day. But who the hell can follow that? Like, that's not easy to do. It's easier to stack your food at night, right? It's easier to just to not eat that much throughout the day, because who really cares about your breakfast and your lunch? It just doesn't feel like it matters that much. Just be satiated and satisfied, and don't eat so little that you end up binging at night, right? Get yourself to the evening, and then get yourself to a point where you eat, I don't know, 2 meals at night back to back. You eat one at like, when you get home from work, and then maybe you have a small meal or snack type thing after that, and boom, you start the next day over again. It's like, that's not that hard to follow. And that's why I think intermittent fasting, became so popular. And I think it still is a good idea. But with sugar fasting, you get an opportunity to like not even worry about a real fast. You're fasting on sugar, fruit juice, maple syrup, honey, sugar, and candy. And you got those 6 things that you can kind of juggle. And remember, you're trying to keep the candy low to moderate. You're trying to keep the fruit high, fruit first, fruit and fruit juice, and any combination thereof, canned peaches, jarred pineapple, jarred this, jarred that, canned this, canned that, things that are in like syrup and stuff like that. Those are great. You get like, I have, I think, some tangerines that are in some syrup. And I think the whole thing has like 200 calories. It's like, that could be lunch for me. Like, I'm not trying to undereat, but like that could be lunch for me on a particular day, because sometimes, like today, I have some things stacked in the morning, and then I'll probably lift like late afternoon. And I don't really need a lot of food to go lift in the afternoon. So I'll just have something like that, 200 to 400 calories, maybe 100. Yeah, maybe like 100 grams of carbohydrate. And then I'll go train like 400 calories worth, maybe even 500 calories worth. But that would be like really ideal. And then I'd go train, and I'd feel like I'm on fire, and I'd start kicking ass. And that's why when I did the podcast with Nsima, we talked about sugar being a PED, carbohydrates being a PED. And that's something that we've been touting for a long time. It's not like that's come out of nowhere. We've been talking about that for a while. I shot a video probably 8 months ago talking about that. In addition to, like, we've been saying that for a while. And again, I got to find the damn book. I got to find my book, The War on Carbs, because in the War on Carbs book, I talk about what I called the performance enhancing diet. And it was a mixture of keto and carbs. And, sometimes people are like, wait a second, you can't do that. You can when you run a ketogenic diet properly, and you hold your insulin sensitivity, and you just bring in carbs periodically, and you stack your carbs kind of around your workout, and you're conscious of the types of carbohydrates you're consuming. So for me, I was consuming like fruits and stuff like that. And that was really helpful. And I could have, 100, 150, sometimes 200 grams of carbohydrate in a day without it affecting me in terms of like fat loss, and not without it feeling like it was like bumping me out of ketosis, which I never cared about anyway, by the way. I actually think that like kissing ketosis is better than like just perpetually just bogging down in it and buckling down. I think scraping up against it, getting close to it, being in and out of it, I think is important. I also want to say that I think being in and out of sugar fasting, being out of this FGF 21 state, this GDF 15 state that we can get in, once you start to become food adverse, it's probably time to hit the reset button. When you kind of wake up and you're like, it's not like you don't want the food even. It's like you're not even hungry. You're like, I just don't even care. That's probably a good time to like reset. So if you've been doing sugar fasting for a bit, and it's usually going to take a handful of days, like take like 4 or 5 days, do 4 or 5 days. Your tongue just feels the same every day. It has that sweet stuff on it all day. Even after you brush your teeth, feel like you can't get rid of it. And you're like, I don't really want to eat anything. Like maybe I'll just have some candy for energy. That's like I guess like a signal. I would say that's a signal to like, hey, maybe I should just discontinue this and stop the fast. And the way that you stop the fast again is not with a party, not with a pig out. I like to give people some rules. So go to your lean meat and your starch. do a starch, enjoy the starch, enjoy the hell out of it, but just do one, just pick rice, pick potatoes, go ahead and have 2 or 3 servings of it. And that's the main thing I want to address before I get to some questions is being in this for the long haul. So the scale goes down. Let's just give an example of somebody who's been doing this for 4 weeks. Week 1, down 7 pounds on cloud 9. They lost basically a pound every single day. Week 2, they lose 3 pounds. Week 4, they gain back 2 pounds, right? And so as you go through, 1 week to the next week, week 1, they lost 7, week 2, they had some success. Week 3, they gained a little bit of weight back. And week 4, the scale's not moving anymore, let's say, right? Well, people have a tendency to get very frustrated right there and quit and give up. And they're not really realizing like, hey, you know what? You're still down a net amount of weight. You're still down a couple pounds. They only gained, 7 and 4, and then they gained like 2 back. So, I mean, they're still down like almost 10 pounds. They're down 8 pounds, something in that neighborhood. And that's awesome. Like you're down 8 pounds in 1 month. Like that's incredible. That's 2 pounds a week. That's great progress. Can you do better? And that's the question is, can you do better? And it should be, can you do better, motherfucker? Because it's your job to get that scale to go down. It's your job to have the energy feel high. Scale low, energy high. Are you adhering to the diet? Or are you eating lean meat and starch every night? Eating lean meat and starch every night, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you want accelerated fat loss, you want accelerated weight loss, then stick to the plan more. Are you eating too much? Are you eating too little? There's all these little checklists of things that you do. And I've done some videos on this already where I've talked about troubleshooting, sugar fasting. And you want to troubleshoot. So the scale, for those of you that your main objective is to lose weight, then you want to see that scale continually go down. Let's just shoot another example here for a minute. Let's say somebody, over the last couple of years is normally 210 pounds. And then as they gotten older, when they went from 45 to 60, they went from 210 to like 250. Well, that person, if they're active and they like training and so forth, that person might not care that much about losing weight in some real rapid manner unless they're not feeling well. So that person might be like, oh, I'll try this thing. Oh, let me try the Smelly protocol, And so they try the Smelly protocol and they're doing it every 2.5 days. They're breaking the sugar fast with some lean meat and some starch. And when they do that, they notice like they'll gain a tiny bit of weight back, but they're still continuing to lose weight. Maybe they even have a cheat on the weekend, because a lot of people are going to have a lot of success by doing that. Remember, the Smelly protocol, one of the additional things is on the day that you're having your meat and your starch, you're still trying to keep your fats under about 30. I know that number sometimes changes. You might hear me make changes to that number. It's because that number should change. You don't want it at 30 all the time, especially when you're eating meat just like every other day. Or every 2 days, right? Or only a couple times a week. We're going to want to bring those fat calories up at some point. So it's basically anywhere between like 30 and 60. I realize there's a big difference between 30 and 60, but if you want the accelerated fat loss and you want to, really dip down, then keep those fats around 30 on those days. Have a nice serving of starch. You don't have to count it or track it, but you can if you want. And yeah, Ryan brought this shot up here, and it shows you when you get to add in the starch and the lean meat and so forth. And by the way, you can go back to your simple sugars after you ate the starches if you wanted to. So it's not like you can't end your night with a sorbet or a fruit bowl or whatever. You can still do that. It's fine to do. But you see the protocol that I lined up here, this is specifically for people that train. So if you don't train, then I would change the weekend a little bit, and I'd probably actually I'd probably actually make day 6 a half a day of sugar fasting and then having your lean meat and starch at night. And I'd probably just do the same exact thing on Sunday, which both of those days, if you look at it, it is pretty much that way anyway. It's just that I'm allowing people, I guess you would say, to start their to break their sugar fast a little earlier on the weekend, because I figured like a lot of people like to train on the weekend. I know I love Saturday, Sunday. Like I have very little responsibility, and I'm like, fuck yeah, I get to like train, like really train hard. I get to really push myself. And so on those days, I'll wake up, I'll have my sugar fasting approved smoothie, and then I'll go train my face off. And when I'm done training, I'll have some protein and I'll have a starch. And then I'll do that like pretty much throughout the rest of the day. And I usually do that Saturday and Sunday. Now, look, this is not a gluttonous thing. This is not, like last week I had sourdough, and I put mozzarella on it and some tomato sauce, and everything was like as low fat as I could get it. Minus, I didn't mess with the cheese, regular Parmesan cheese, regular mozzarella cheese on this sourdough bread that I get from Costco. It was just unbelievable. It was amazing. It wasn't like a regular pizza necessarily, much thicker crust and much more like dough. But shit, man, it was unbelievable. Now, look, when you do something like that for, I did it basically 2 days in a row, but it wasn't 2 full days in a row. It wasn't an onslaught. It's not like I'm just sitting there like hammering cereal all day, or it's nothing like that. It's not like a cheat, it's not the same as a cheat. It feels like a cheat though. That's the cool part. And I've done this with pasta and meat sauce. My meat sauce recipe is 99 lean ground turkey and 93 lean ground beef. I mix them together, throw tomato sauce in there. Or I can make that a Mexican dish very easy by throwing in like taco seasoning and some rice. And that's delicious. And I can throw that into a tortilla and make like a burrito. These are all cool options that I normally didn't have available to me when I was carnivoring or when I was ketoing. And now I have these options available. There's no reason to cheat on the diet. Now, here's the most important thing. When you go and you do something like this, it's going to lead to weight gain on the scale. It doesn't have to. You can be mindful and not overeat, but the likelihood you're going to overeat is very high. And I'm here to tell you that that's okay. It's fine. If the scale goes up 4 pounds, if the scale goes up 6 pounds, if the scale goes up 8 pounds, it's totally and completely fine. If you weigh yourself after a workout, which I do sometimes because I just like the fun of like seeing where I'm at. I think my lightest body weight so far has been 203. And that was on a day where I trained pretty hard. It started to get warmer out here in Sacramento. And so I was depleted. I was 205 as it was in the morning. I didn't have a big breakfast, and I went and I trained my face off, and I still was drinking liquid, during my workout. I'm not trying to like, really dehydrate myself severely, but I might've been 202 or 201 even at some point, which is kind of cool. We're getting very close to that 200-pound mark. And I weighed myself at 203. Last night before I went to bed, I was 217. Right? So some people might be like, well, you didn't lose any actual weight then, because they don't understand what's going on. What's going on here is that is my absolute lowest, and it's dehydrated, right? Versus my fullest, where I'm full of glycogen and full of liquid. Okay. Like this Within You brand shaker cup. Like obviously the cup itself has some weight to it, but there's a good 32 ounces of water in there. And don't forget, like a gallon of water is around 8 pounds. So I don't think I drink a gallon of water every day, but I might have probably at least half a gallon of water a day. Half a gallon of liquid, right? Let's just say it's 5 pounds. Be 4 pounds would be 5 pounds. Half a gallon of liquid is 5 pounds. Now, when you're consuming carbohydrate, you're going to tend to hold on to those liquids a little bit more so than when you are not eating carbohydrates. So the shifts that you can see in the scale can be pretty big. For the women, it's going to be a little bit less. For the men, it's going to be a little bit more. That's why guys are like, oh, I lost 8 pounds. I just did this one thing and I lost 8 pounds in 2 days. And then women are always pissed. It's because a guy is bigger. A guy has more glycogen stores, AKA more muscle, usually. But if you go like pound for pound, male to female, a lot of weight loss and weight gain is actually very similar. Even though, females have, they have a menstrual cycle, right? Which can throw things off. But aside from that, it's like, we're not that different. It's just, there's muscle mass, there's height. Men are just normally taller. The average male is taller than the average female. And the average male is usually heavier than the average female. So percentage wise, everything might be very similar, rather than just looking at the weight. But a guy can drop, 8 to 10 pounds easy, and he could slap 8 to 10 pounds back on very easily. And a lot of that has to do with the glycogen storage. So anyway, excuse me, 203 to 217, again, dehydrated, right? I like to get my scale readings in the morning. I'm not drinking any water in the middle of the night when I wake up and pee, which I usually use the bathroom a couple times in the middle of the night. And so, yeah, I could weigh 5 pounds less in the morning. Like every morning, I could weigh 5 pounds less. But what I wanted to describe to you guys is my bracket weight keeps going downward. I did dry fasting a while back. I did some other type of fasting where I was doing I think I did a 48-hour fast. I did a water fast, and then I followed it up with a dry fast. And when I was doing some of that, I got my weight to dip down quite a bit. But that was real fast. That was really fast. And I did see 203 on the scale was my lowest. But I really pushed it. I went into the sauna, and I was just kind of just testing things out, and just like Cole, running some experiments. And that wasn't real weight loss. That wasn't real fat loss. And I didn't think that it was. I was not misled and thinking oh, this is real weight loss. I understood what I was doing at the time. Again, it was an experiment. I just want to kind of see what happened. And as soon as I put the weight back on, I stayed. That's the difference. Okay. As soon as I put the weight back on, I stayed there. I'm not saying that dry fasting or fasting doesn't work, by the way. It does work. It's just the way that I utilized it in the little tests that I ran. It didn't work great for weight loss at that particular time. It still was sort of working, but what happened, one of the reasons why it didn't work is because I didn't have good enough control when I came out of it. I ate too much. So it wasn't necessarily, and it wasn't even that next day. It was the rest of the week. And it was accumulative. It wasn't like a pig out. It wasn't like anything crazy happened. I didn't lose my mind and just start eating everything in sight. But I did some 48-hour fasts for probably about 6 weeks or so, 4 to 6 weeks. And it did help knock off a couple pounds, but it was very difficult for me to stabilize it. And that's one of the things you're going to have to figure out with this diet too. You're going to figure out how do I stabilize this? How do I make this realistic? Because you can get into all the nuances of what makes this diet more and more effective. But the more that you do that, maybe the hungrier that you get, right? If you keep screwing with this thing too much and tampering with it too much, and you're chasing those numbers on the scale too much, then you could be in a place where you need to dial that back a little bit so that you don't get over hungry and so that you don't fall off. So for me, I'm still down 10 to 12 pounds. And ultimately, when I get down to that 200-pound mark, and once I learn to stay there, it will be 20 pounds to 25 pounds of weight lost in the entirety of me doing the diet. But you guys also have seen the results in terms of my fat loss. My body composition is changing, and there's no question about that. There's not, regardless of the body weight. And for some reason, I hold on to water like crazy. Maybe I was a fucking cactus in a different life, or a camel. But yeah, I can hold water very easily. So I can look that shredded right there, and I won't necessarily look bloated. If I gain some water from that, but I won't look as shredded. I won't look as lean. And sometimes they even actually just look bigger, which is kind of cool. Sometimes they'll just look more full. But this is, these shots that Ryan took, and it's really cool that these pictures ended up like everywhere on the internet because people are, talking a lot about sugar fasting. They're using these pictures as examples, which is really neat, to have a 48-year-old body that people are utilizing to draw attention to, a particular diet. It's kind of cool. And to have my homie Ryan taking the pictures is cool too, because he deserves a lot of credit for a lot of the information, a lot of stuff that we're putting out there. So anyway, it's you got to be in it for the long haul, and you have to understand. Somebody in the comment section said, "Oh my God, how are you so positive about gaining like 6 pounds or 8 pounds or whatever it was I gained after I discontinued my sugar fasting?" And I was like, well, it's just part of the process. That's the way it feels for me. Like, it just feels like it's part of it. It doesn't feel, it's not bad. The weight gain's not bad, and the weight loss, don't over celebrate the weight loss and don't overly be disappointed by the weight gain. Something I've learned probably 12 years ago or 15 years ago was to really try to live a life that doesn't have any expectations. Because what happens when expectations aren't met? What happens when you thought something was going to happen a particular way, but it just didn't? I think we're being unrealistic with ourselves too. You should know, like, if I said, hey, listen, I need you to weigh less. Let's say it's Monday. I said, I need you to weigh a lot less by Friday. And if you are able to weigh less than you are right now, and I could weigh you and say, hey, if you lose 8 pounds, I'm going to give you $10,000 cash. You would, and I said, you can't use a scale, and you can't count calories. You would be able to fucking weigh less. Like we know how to do that, right? We know how to manipulate that so that we weigh less. And I'm saying, like, the scale is a great marker. It's a nice indicator. But why are you standing on the scale with your eyes closed and then looking down and then being shocked that you gained 3 pounds when you haven't really been following the plan that well? You have to really be honest with yourself. And it's not just follow the plan the day before. Again, the body, I think, always works in like these 3-day waves. What have you done in the last 3 days? If you behaved yourself in the last 3 days and the scale's still not moving, that's when you have to really troubleshoot, and you have to say, okay, well, if I'm being honest, I've been on this pretty good. My adherence is at like 95. Okay, I did have a bunch of candy on Monday, and I went to the movies, and that was a pretty big bag of candy. I probably didn't really need all that. And then you kind of think about a couple times you maybe overly stuffed yourself, or you think about, maybe something you ate that was off menu. You're like, oh, I did have some cereal yesterday after my workout. It's like, yeah, maybe that is, helping you kind of hold on to that weight. And the scale is not just going to go down a pound or 2 or half pound every day. Like, that's just not going to happen. So everyone just needs to really work on just being patient, but overall the scale should be going down. When we look at the scale over the course of a week or 2 weeks or a month, that's the most important thing, that we see that trending downward. And our friend Russell Buddy has shared his graph with us before of him losing 150 pounds. And the graph is not just this slope. It's not like it's not like the slope of a triangle, right? It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, it goes down, 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 it goes up, it goes down. And you know what? It's okay if it trends upward. And it's okay if it trends upward for a bit. Like, it's okay if you're off plan for a little while. Like, I don't want to tell you it's okay, because telling you it's okay, it might be misconstrued as like giving you a red light for bad behavior. But that is not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to explain to you that things are going to go up and down. They just are. The weight's going to go up and down. It's going to stagger.